Why did your friendship with your best friend come to an end? She was growing into a person I didn't like, but I stayed friends with her because we had 17 years of history together. When I met my husband, I 100% knew he was the one and told her I was head over heels in love. But when she met him, she told me, he seems more my type than yours, he's too attractive for you. Okay, fine, whatever. Then one day, she and I were out in an area with poor cell service, and I used her phone to call my man and let him know when I'd be home. She secretly saved his number. He started telling me, Nicole isn't a good friend, and he would tell me he didn't want to be around her. Then one day, he sat me down and told me the reason was because she was trying to fool around with him. He showed me the texts where she was begging him to cheat on me, telling him I'd never have to know, asking him how he could stay faithful to someone so ugly, me, when she was so much better looking, and she sent pics of herself. I ended the friendship with her immediately. Our circle of friends was divided on the issue. I refused to socialize with her, so if they invited me to anything, I'd ask if Nicole was going and politely decline if she was. They told me, yeah, she messed up, but you're choosing some guy over a 17-year friendship, and it's putting people in an uncomfortable spot, having to choose who to invite to things. I replied, well, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, so I'll make it easy on you. Y'all can have her. Don't bother inviting me to anything again. And I never spoke to any of them again. That was 22 years ago, and I stand by my decision. When my husband passed away, a couple of them reached out. I did not reply. Story 2. The final straw? It was her birthday, and she invited me to go into the city to spend over $100, back when it was a lot of money, to make a cake at some popular bakery. She had ghosted me for years prior to this, and she had reunited maybe only a few months earlier. She made it clear she had asked all of her other friends and they declined already, so I was her last resort. Like, girl, you don't have to rub in how unimportant I am to you and how ready you are to use me. Story 3. She ditched me the day we were scheduled to go on an international trip we'd been planning for 2 years. I went alone and had an absolutely amazing time, other than the loneliness. Been 2 years, have not spoken since, best friend of 20 years. I've not been able to trust anyone else in the same way since then and have made efforts to make new friends, but a longtime friend is different. I'm not sure I'll ever have that again. Story 4. She switched personalities after getting a boyfriend. She had a long-term relationship in which she completely belonged to her ex-boyfriend and distanced herself from all her friends. I was not her friend at the time. I got closer to her as a friend after her breakup. At that time, I used to think that her ex was manipulative and that he kept her away from all her friends while she did his laundry and he played video games. After her breakup, I consoled her with my time, energy, and money. She's very bad with money. I encouraged her to participate in college functions and even helped her get the job she's currently working at. But she moved in with her new boyfriend and she started treating me as a convenience, only remembering me when she needed me, and repeated all her patterns like she did with her ex. The only thing that matters to her is the guy she's dating. She forgets everyone else, and now I can see why her previous friends left her. It was not her ex-boyfriend, it was her all along. I blocked her without giving her closure because she was not doing all this unknowingly. She knew what she was doing. Now she's trying to paint me as a villain. Story 5. I had a friend since first grade. We got really close in high school. In college, he moved away to some fancy college in Switzerland. He was always a bit rude and abrasive, but whatever happened there, he came back 10 times worse. Extremely status obsessed, but also he came back with a huge contempt for poor people. His parents gave him a bit of money and a place to stay. He used to say stupid things that I can't imagine he actually believed, like, I had no idea why people had mortgages, why don't they just buy their houses in cash, and stuff like that. He hated poor people. He had a huge disdain for people in debt. He used to say some really callous crap like, oh, I'm going to start a business and only hire people in debt so I can treat them terribly and they can't afford to quit. I tried very hard to turn him around and cut that behavior out, but it never worked. I graduated college and got a job in my field. And he kept pressuring me to know how much money I made. It wasn't a lot. I kept deflecting the question until one day I finally caved in. I could tell he enjoyed that I was working for such little money. I was also working the graveyard shift, so I was tired all the time. So one day before work, I met him for coffee in the evening. He could tell I looked exhausted and was insulting me indirectly, thinking he was being sly, and just said that people who got out of bed for anything less than 6 figures were stupid. I had enough. I said I was going to leave and that's it. I went to my car and by the time I had the key in the ignition, I said, this friendship is over. I never looked back. He texted me to get coffee and so on, but I kept ignoring him. I realized that hanging out with him, he was just going to bring me way down. After I stopped being friends with him, my life just got so much better. Story 6. I was 14 and we were inseparable in BFE, Missouri until one day he told me to act my color. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I moved up, and moved on. He stayed and stayed where he was. My parents picked him up and invited him over for Christmas break because I was having a rough go of everything, an 8-hour round trip. We were playing outside and he got so incredibly upset because something happened to his shoes. At that moment, I knew the relationship was done. I felt a weight lifted when we dropped him off back at home. I haven't really talked to him in 25 years. Story 7. Found out that he slapped his wife outside a video store after an argument. Confronted him. He tried to deny it. After a bit of back and forth, he admitted it, warning him if he ever laid a finger on her again in anger, I would beat him. A few weeks later, got a phone call from his wife that he hit her again when hunting for him but couldn't find him. He completely disappeared. After a couple of days, found out that he had flown abroad. Stepdad lived in another country. Told his mom, sister, and everyone else that if he ever stepped back foot in town, I would beat him. Never saw or heard from him again. She threw out and sold all of his stuff, divorced him, and moved on with her life. Story 8. Because in late April of 2021, my father fell and the doctors told me it was doubtful he would recover. I had already made plans to meet up with our best friends on that Sunday, but instead I was going to be driving down to sit with my dad as he spent his last hours on this earth. So I stopped in where she worked to tell her I was going to have to go down, sign papers for hospice care, and stay until my dad passed. I just happened to mention that I was glad I had gotten my vaccinations for COVID and was going to be able to go into the hospital and sit in his room, as well as the hospice facility once they moved him. She came unglued, went nuclear on every single COVID vaccine conspiracy theory circulating at the time. The list was long. Everyone was going to pass away who got the vaccine. I was shedding virus even though I got the mRNA vaccine that I had been injected with a micro-tracking device. Her list was extensive. But nowhere in there was there any sympathy for me going to sign papers to allow my father to pass away or to sit there and watch him pass away. Not a single word of support. Instead, she was shouting for me to get away from her. Well, I did remove myself from her that day, for good. No need for me to explain why. My husband continued to see her and her husband for a few months more because he simply didn't believe that my telling of the interaction could have possibly been accurate, until he saw obvious evidence of them lying about something that had to do with a grade school instrument rental. They told us repeatedly that they had returned the clarinet when their daughter decided she didn't like practicing and didn't want to continue. They argued with the school and told them that they messed up by not recording the return. But then they told my husband that someone was coming to buy the clarinet. I think they forgot that they told us a totally different story less than 6 months before and retold it several times since. Story 9. They had kids and I wasn't willing to prioritize or cater to their kids the way they expected. You want to share your food with your kid? Go for it, but this is my food. You want to spend money to see this concert but leave early because the kid is tired and cranky? That's why I brought my own car. I'll see you later. You expect to split the bill for this Airbnb evenly even though you and the kids have both bedrooms and I have the pull-out couch in the living room, which will also double as a rumpus room when the kids wake up at 5 a.m.? I don't think so. Story 10. When it was just us, it was cool, but soon when it was several people in a group, he would take every opportunity to make fun of me and try to make me the butt of the joke. He asked to borrow money. I gave it and never got it back, but it hurt me to know that I had to learn a lesson about loaning money to people from someone who I trusted for so long. Then he came around asking me to get involved with robberies. I didn't call him back, found his arrest record soon after. It makes me sad because he was such a talented musician and academically brilliant dude. He was so much fun to hang out with when we were younger, but as time moved on, people grow and change. I hope he's doing well and he's staying out of trouble wherever he's at. Story 11. Growing apart, mostly. Friend number 1 couldn't handle me having a baby because she hates kids and hates hearing about kids. Not her fault, but we couldn't make it work. Friend number 2 cheated on her boyfriend, then married someone else, not the one she cheated with. I felt guilty about it, so I told the BF eventually. He thanked me. Then somehow they got back together and he unfriended me on Facebook and she never talked to me again. Other ones just sort of drifted away with no story to tell. Story 12. I let my best friend down by calling him a week before his wedding and telling him I wasn't going to be his best man. It clashed with a father-son holiday in Europe and meant that I would have to take another ferry to the Isle of Wight first. I couldn't get in touch with him or find him for 18 years after that. I found him in July where we hugged and cried and talked for hours. I apologized for the way I treated him. He was fine about it and said he married a fool and they were divorced within 2 years, leaving him destitute. We're friends again now. Story 13. First best friend in middle school started to get popular. I wasn't cool enough. Second best friend got angry because I backed out on getting a place with him in college because he didn't put in a deposit or sign any paperwork for a month. The other roommates voted him off the island. He blamed me. Third best friend made really poor life choices. I cut him off. Too much drama. Always asking for money. Fourth best friend is going well. A decade in. We both work hard, have similar interests and views, and our wives mostly get along. Story 14. When I realized she never was happy for my good news, she would make backhanded comments constantly, like when I told her I was excited to finally have a co-parenting schedule because it meant I could join a trivia group. She said, "It must be nice to have free time. I never get to go out." Every major event in my life, she would have to act so petty and jealous, but if something bad happened, she was there for me. I realized in a twisted way she liked seeing me suffer, but it wasn't because she didn't like me. She was just that unhappy and insecure with her own life, but my empathy only had so much mileage. Story 15. In middle school, we were kind of thrust together because our parents were all friends. But over time, I realized that he was just a mean, snide little schmuck. He took after his mother, who loved to take swipes at other people. And when I started dating a girl in my junior year in high school, he just went ballistic. Like, he told me he wanted to date her. Well, dude, you should have asked her then, I thought. So he really started talking trash about me, and that was that. Good decision. I'm in my 60s now. The guy wound up dropping out of college after a semester and worked a lot of jobs selling shoes and whatnot, but never could keep a job because he was a raging schmuck. Eventually, he just moved back in with his parents and watched TV all day. His dad was a successful dentist, so the folks just subsidized his indolent lifestyle. His parents passed away, and when it came time to divvy up the estate with his sister and brother, he threatened them if they tried to sell the house. Eventually, he somehow managed to buy the house from them. I have no idea how. Now he's moving into assisted living at the age of 63 with health issues, presumably because he sat around the house all day and did nothing while his parents waited on him hand and foot. Lessons from this: if someone doesn't consistently make you feel good about yourself, that's not your friend. Sure, there are times when a good friend will call you out on your nonsense, but someone who cuts down other people and is constantly negative, get that toxicity out of your life pronto. Before entering into any kind of relationship with anyone, especially one that entails trust, watch how they treat other people, such as cashiers or service workers. That's how they'll be treating you in 6 months. Don't cripple your children by making their lives easy. Story 16. She sided with my ex even though she knew me longer than she knew my ex, and at one point we were like sisters. I introduced her to my ex. I even begged my ex to help her sort out a 12,500 pound loan that her ex-boyfriend used to buy his new car with and refused to pay her back. She got a big chunk of that money back. They messaged each other during that time and confided in each other to the point they knew each other far better than I knew them. She fanned his jealousy and insecurities, masked in jokes. A few months ago, she contacted me asking for my new number. I refused to keep my peace, and at that time, I was trying to cut off anyone or anything that linked me to him, as he used anything to get me back to him. She then unfriended me on all social media and extended it to our mutual friend who has been sheltering me, finding me a job, and saving me from stress and self-pity. Story 17. I invited him to my wedding as my best man. He was so happy and excited. He had every detail, knew where to be when, where the hotel was. We're not from the same city. Everything was organized, and I thought nothing could go wrong. And then he never came to the wedding and ghosted me since. He's active on social media and well, it seems, but there's no way for me to reach him, as he acts like I don't exist anymore and I never got an explanation. Story 18. She ran for state office, and after a couple of cycles where she didn't win, she did. Then after that, every time she wanted to catch up, it would involve asking me to donate to her campaign. In one case, she needed me to break up $1,000 into 4 donations of $250 from 4 different members of my family. I'm still not sure why I did that for her, but I did. Then I remember getting a really nice invitation to her swearing in with a handwritten note. Couldn't have done it without my friends. But when I RSVP'd and said I'd love to go, and I was honored that I'd bring my 13-year-old son, the next day, an assistant called me and said she wouldn't be able to have any FaceTime with me, and the best they could do was to make sure I could get a reservation at a hotel where there would be a live camera feed. Okay, well, so much for that. The last thing she invited me to was a fundraiser in her support with a cost per person of $500, and she wanted me to buy a table so some of our other school friends could attend without the cost to them. She doesn't even serve in my state, and while I'm super happy for her, the quality of the friendship turned into something different that was working for her, but not for me. We just had a major reunion that I didn't attend between the school officials trying to chase down the older alums for legacy gifts, and her coming back and working the alums there for donations. I just felt like I had outgrown the whole thing. Nothing against her, really. I just wasn't interested in paying to keep a friendship in that way. Story 19. I realized she enjoyed my misery. She thrived during my bad times. When I started therapy and began to get my confidence back, she didn't like it. The last real conversation I had with her was the icing on the cake for me. She didn't like my new stable, boring relationship and how there was no drama. Halfway through telling her about something I had achieved at work and was proud of, she butted in to remind me of the time I was mistreated by my ex and to not get too ahead of myself because I have PTSD and I could go mental at any point. And also, had I told my new partner about my mental health issues, I made an excuse and said I had to go, and I hadn't spoken to her since. Story 20. We were friends for 50 of my 55 years. She voted for Trump and intoxicatedly announced it at her trans child's graduation in May. She then told her other child, who was gay, that she did it so he can't marry a man because she wants biological grandchildren. I tried to remove her from the party to get her sobered up, and I kept telling everyone that I had no idea where that came from and she must be intoxicated. She refused to leave the party for even a second, so we all decided to end the party for everyone's sake. The next day, I showed up at her house with coffee and a late breakfast so we could laugh about how dumb she was the night before. Her husband and 2 kids were in the driveway loading some stuff into their truck, and I instantly knew that it was all real. Apparently, she spent the rest of the night telling her kids and husband she hopes Trump comes for them and all the reasons why. The last straw was her emailing CBP to ask if they will be deporting LGBTQ people because she has 2 in her house. I went inside to prove them wrong, and she was sober and said she had no regrets. I haven't talked to her since, but her husband and kids stayed with us for a couple of weeks until he could find some place to live. One of their kids is still with us because he is in his senior year of high school and wanted to finish with his class and not move to the county next to ours. I will never forgive her for the hurt and betrayal she caused. It isn't even about voting for Trump. It's about saying and doing those things to her own children. And if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 21. She ran into a rough patch after she was living with her sister and hating it. I had her come live with us. My husband was mostly against it, but because she needed help and she and I had been friends for like well over 30 years, he did it for me. Came to find out, she went to him and explained I was making all the wrong decisions for our kids and that she could do better, even though she had no kids, except one she gave up for adoption at 16. She suggested he should kick me out and not only slide into the position of mother, but could also fulfill all the duties of a wife. I also learned she was coming into our master bath while my husband was in the shower to go to the bathroom. And all this time, she was telling me what a great job I was doing as a mother, saying she didn't realize how much responsibility it was and that it was tripled because I had 3 school-age kids. She was turned down flat. My husband loved me and we'd been together for 30 years at this point and had just built a house. Shortly after, we had the state police show up. She accused my husband of SA. I kicked her out and haven't talked to her since. She came around a few years ago to ask forgiveness. I let my husband handle bouncing her again and I never called her. She sat in front of my house for days just crying in her car. Play stupid games, wins stupid prizes. Story 22. Went to Paris when we were 20. Her mom had a house there with her stepdad, so she was a frequent visitor. It was my first time to Europe, probably my 3rd time on a plane. She refused to take pictures with me the whole trip. We had been best friends since we were 7, but for some reason I think she either didn't think I was cool enough to be seen with on social media or something. I really don't know. It was weird and hurtful. We went to Cannes one day. She wanted to nap all day instead of going out around town. I called her on it and she said it was her vacation too. When we finally arrived in Paris, she acted like a brat the whole time. She complained about being too tired to go see the Eiffel Tower lit up at night. And when we went to the Louvre halfway through our tour, she doubled over dramatically, saying she couldn't walk anymore until she got some breakfast. We had literally been there an hour. She basically acted like I was a huge pain in the butt and a bother the whole time. It was not a good trip and I stopped talking to her when we got back home. She tried to ask my boyfriend at the time if all was okay, what happened, etc. I just kind of kept ignoring her. She went out to a party with the high school cool crowd the day after we got back and took tons of photos and posted them all over Facebook and was out until late. It took me years to get over it. Honestly felt like a divorce or a death even up to like 7 or 8 years ago. She was living in NYC and we tried to reconnect and she blew me off, so yeah. Sometimes I still think about the good times, but overall, I know it was a good thing. Story 23. All of my quote-unquote ex-best friends are actually because of situational distance. So in elementary school, I had a couple of friends. My best friend and I went to the same middle school for the 6th grade, but we're in different sections. So we only got to hang out for those few minutes between classes and the random moments before and after school, after we got dropped off and before we got picked up. However, my parents enrolled me in a then new charter school for 7th grade. This was before the likes of MySpace and Facebook, so all my elementary school and 6th grade friends were completely out of my life. Because I was smart and chubby/fat, I was constantly bullied from 7th grade to 10th grade. I managed to get a best friend in 10th grade, but we lost touch after we graduated. By the time whichever of us unfriended the other over politics, we were barely acquaintances anymore. Then my best friend in college, they moved away after graduating college. All my quote-unquote best friends since I graduated college, I'm still friends with. Some of these are on like 8 or 9 years of friendship and hanging out and stuff. Story 24. He got a girlfriend, LMAO. We'd been friends since we were like 5 and we referred to each other as siblings. We were close our whole lives. He was one of the groomsmen at my wedding. He struggled to keep romantic relationships, and when we were 28, he met this girl. She didn't like that he had female friends and I kept trying to make plans to hang out. He would be pretty crappy about committing to plans or even agreeing, so I stopped reaching out. He never reached out to me and we completely stopped talking. He got married to her last year. He still has never made any attempt to reach out. We haven't seen or spoken to each other since 2021. A childhood friendship, quote unquote, close as siblings, and that friendship ended with complete silence, no big fight or actual drama, and not even a goodbye. Story 25. I went on a trip to Hawaii with her and her family, and she was just being vile to everyone throughout the entire thing. Snapped at her mom and sister over nothing constantly, throwing fits whenever she didn't get exactly what she wanted. It was rough to be around. Then I realized all the crap she used to talk with me about how awful her family was probably just her making things up so she could play the victim. After that trip, every time we hung out, I just noticed all of these things I never really picked up on before. She never listened to a word I said, everything was about her. She was always playing the victim in every aspect of her life, always talking crap about people. It just crumbled from there, and that was it. Story 26. She passed away. We were besties from ages 15 to 16 to 32 to 33. It's been 7 years without her. I miss her every single day. She was my soulmate as a best friend, and while her passing has been incredibly painful, it was unexpected. I hope everyone gets to experience the type of trust and love we had for one another. If you didn't know us, it would sound romantic, but it was never about that side of life for either of us. We just unconditionally loved one another and never doubted each other. We were also trauma bonded and went through some serious hell together. I fully believe we would grow old together. Life has been lonely ever since, but I guess I'm doing okay. Life keeps moving after passing, and I'm a mom, so I couldn't give up. You learn to adapt and grow with your grief. Mine took a long time to calm down. Now it's gentle waves with the occasional day of despair and a lot of laughter and love in the in-between. Story 27. Two buddies here. First one, my high school buddy revealed to me that his baby mama left him, so he deliberately quit his high-paying job, moved back with his mother, and cut his income down to basically nothing. Also, he wouldn't have to pay her any child support money for their kid. I just couldn't get over the fact that he cared so little for his own child that he would willingly sabotage his own life to screw his ex and child over. I stopped reaching out to him, and we eventually fell out of touch. Haven't talked to him in maybe 20 years now. Second one, my bro, he got pancreas cancer right after COVID broke out. Despite chemo and experimental treatments, the cancer spread. He passed away a couple of months shy of Christmas in 2020. I still miss him to this day. Story 28. Her boyfriend cheated on her, so they broke up, but a non-refundable trip to Mexico was coming up, so I suggested she at least get her own room. She chewed me out for that and asked for support, so I said, have fun. On the trip, he proposed, so she forgave him. During wedding planning, she found text messages from another girl, so I comforted her. After the wedding, she asked me what I thought about a promotion. I said, take the money. She passed it up because her husband didn't want her traveling so much. She called me in the middle of the night to watch her kids. I said no, let the man cheat in peace. Last I ever heard from her. Story 29. He joined the army and became a completely different person, like completely off the rails. Moved away for a long time, as you'd expect, but we'd still sporadically keep in touch. We arranged to meet for a pint with our respective girlfriends one day. It was all pretty good. The next day, he proposed to her. Didn't say a thing to me about being best man or that he was even going to do it. We never spoke again, not because of that. I think we just went different directions, and the next time I saw anything to do with him was when he posted his wedding pictures. Not only was I not best man, I wasn't even invited. We'd been absolutely inseparable, best friends from the age of 6 to 7 to about 20. We never fell out, I just don't know what happened. I know he joined the army and moved away, but I signed up to the forces too and was still able to maintain my old home friendships despite being away too. I moved on from it all, but it used to bother me a lot. Story 30. We met at 21, we're now 40. A couple years ago, she called me up all coked out, rambling about some job opportunity she had from a guy she met at a bar, who she went home with and did a bunch of substances with. I told her I was busy making dinner for my family and asked if I could call her back. She then texted me this long message about how I think I'm better than her, I don't support her dreams, and I can't even take 10 minutes to listen to her tell me about this life-changing opportunity. I felt really bad and called her back. The next 3 conversations I had with her, she proceeded to tear me down, call me a bad mother, tell me my family isn't proud of me and that she knows I'm self-conscious about my weight, which is why I can't find a man. None of those things are true. I realized that she and I had run our course. She had all of her kids taken away from her. She was unemployed. She was 37 and doing substances on a weeknight with some stranger from a bar. She was projecting all of that crap at me. We had a lot of fun back in the day, but I had outgrown her years ago. It made me realize that she was also very bitter and jealous and had not done anything to fix her situation. She would rather take it out on me. I haven't spoken to her since. I don't plan on ghosting her. I was just going to break up with her properly, but it never really happened, and now it's been years and I have no desire to. Story 31. Her mental health really deteriorated. She was basically a functioning alcoholic, and it got to the point that every outing with her ended in some drama. Fighting with her boyfriend outside the bar, retching in a lounge and getting kicked out, getting aggressive, and wanting to fight people who didn't do anything. One day we went to a bar and I bumped into a friend I hadn't seen in forever, and he was gay now and with a group of friends. Our groups meshed together that night and she got very intoxicated and started saying some homophobic words. I was disgusted and did not want to associate with her anymore after that. I started thinking about what her behavior would be like in every important event in my life, and we started disagreeing on a lot of moral values. She was anti-vax, started believing conspiracy theories, homophobic, and I'm a super liberal, plus own a business, so I could have repercussions against my business if I ended up in a video or something with her saying the stupid stuff she did. It was sad because she was an extremely nice person all my life, and I slowly saw her turn into a completely different person and just deteriorate due to alcohol and definitely untreated mental health symptoms. I heavily believe she was undiagnosed bipolar or schizophrenic. There were a lot of delusions towards the end and even very concerning homicidal ideations. I was close to her family and begged them to put her in treatment, but they just turned a blind eye, and as we got older I realized I didn't need to be her caretaker or responsible for her. I told her my piece and our chapter ended. I couldn't let myself be affected by her behavior anymore. She ruined so many birthdays and events. One side story, early on into her change, her and her family started honing in on this big conspiracy about the milk industry. I went to her house one time and they offered me pasta and the sauce was made with milk. I had a horrible stomachache for a few days after that. Come to find out that they would now get their milk off the black market at some farm where it was raw, unpasteurized milk. I was so freaking angry because I felt like they should have told me, as I would never have eaten it. And I know how dangerous that could be, and I felt like it was very violating to feed me something I could have gotten a very serious illness from. Story 32. He got way too clingy. I'm a friend who needs space, constant messages, always interrupts people. Told him multiple times, dude, you're smothering me. Give me space. I don't need to talk to you 24/7. It's too much. If I'm speaking to anyone other than him, he comes over and interrupts and makes it all about him. Literally will insert himself and just make some stupid joke that has nothing to do with what I was talking to the other person about. Started saying too many lovey-dovey things that were making me feel weird. I've never met an adult who talks that much. It is extremely overwhelming. He just doesn't understand boundaries or people in general. What really made me angry was he sent me a video randomly of him retching because it was quote-unquote funny. I was disgusted and furious, told him my boundaries 3 times now and I'm officially over it. I saw the signs from the beginning and there have always been things that really bothered me, but he is very nice, so I felt obligated. Eventually everything just started building up and I grew to really dislike him. I don't like being around him anymore. It gives me such horrible anxiety. I started avoiding him at all costs, caused me way too much stress and worry. I tried to hang on as long as I could because he is a nice, caring human, but it was just way too much for me. I can breathe now. Story 33. I had surgery to remove a possibly cancerous bone tumor. I'd had it since I was 6. It had shown no signs of cancer until I was 19. So it required a chunk of my bone being removed and replaced and cutting through my rotator cuff to put a rod in to hold my arm together. I was in the hospital for 3 days. His mom worked there as a nurse and he lived less than 2 minutes away. He never visited. I was on bed rest for almost 2 months after that. The pain meds kept me up at the weirdest hours, and most of the time I was awake, I was alone. It was the loneliest, most painful time of my life. I begged him to visit, and after a month he came by for an hour. I couldn't even get him to join me playing Xbox while I struggled to play with one hand. He'd always been kind of a crappy friend, but that was the moment I realized how crappy a friend he was. I was in physical therapy for 2 years to recover. He never even asked how I was going. We stayed loose, almost friends for a while after that. The fact that he switched schools to 1-2 hours away helped keep our relationship shambling along. When I found out he picked up smoking after watching his mom go through cancer, not to mention my own cancer issue, I was completely done with him. I called him, told him what a piece of crap he was, and that was that. He's tried to mend fences with me since then, and I'm open to the idea. He's turned a new page in at least some regards, but he's still a pretty crappy friend, so I'm not exactly waiting up on him. Story 34. She and I were best friends growing up. I had a situationship at the time and she would hang out with him occasionally without me, so no big deal. Since we were all friends and she always told me about it. We were backdoor neighbors, and one day as I drove past her house on my way home, I saw his car parked there. She hadn't mentioned they were hanging out that day, which made me uneasy, but I let it go since he and I eventually went our separate ways. About 6 or 7 months later, I started dating someone new, a guy she had actually introduced me to and encouraged me to pursue. Things were going well, and we'd been together a few months when one afternoon I drove by her house early and saw his truck there. I was shocked. When I asked her about it, she said they were just hanging out, but again, she hadn't told me. Not long after he and I broke up, maybe a week or 2 later, and then I saw on Facebook that she was dating him. And that was it for me. It turned into one of the worst breakups of my life, not just losing him, but realizing I'd lost my best friend too. The best part is we all worked together and I had to work with them for another 6 months before finally being able to transfer to another location. Story 35. They all got girlfriends and full-time jobs and kids, and I fell behind because of anxiety and depression stopping me from leaving my house and saying yes to their invites to fun things. I'd known my mates for like 30 plus years to 10 years. I see a few of them a few times a year, and 2 of them just pop up every few years for a few days and disappear. The others just, faded away, or I moved house and never saw them again. Currently, I have no friends, no girlfriend or family. I'm quite lonely, but I am getting by, I guess. Story 36. He asked me to be his best man. He and his partner and I were in our 40s and they had been together for years. So far, so good. His description of the wedding: registry office for a few family and friends, and back to his for a barbecue and a few beers and a few grass. No speeches, jeans and t-shirts, very laid back, him and his partner all in agreement. Fast forward a month and he's been talking to his mad mother, and the wedding is now in a church followed by a marquee in the grounds of a stately home. 250 people, morning suits. There's now a stag. Do I have to organize? Speeches all around, and his mother wants to chat with me about my quote-unquote duties. I say no thanks, that's not what I signed up for, and boom, end of friendship. I didn't get a wedding invite and we didn't speak again. Story 37. When she was getting married to a bum, I found out that she only cared about me because I was the only one of her friends who would watch her nonverbal, severely autistic son while she went out and had fun with her real friends. For her, Jack and Jill, I was the only one of her friends and family who did what I said I would do. No one else sold tickets, no one else provided food, and the gifts that they brought for the raffle were cheap things that they put together that they already had in their houses. Yet I was the one yelled at for being a failure. Mind you, at the same time, I'm going through a divorce with the best man, and she gave zero support for that, which I was fine with because she called me screaming about why I wasn't at her house to assemble favors. Everyone else was there, but when I asked about what time I should be there, she said, whenever. Both my ex and I dropped out because the groom called him to yell at him, saying, "Get your wife's butt to my house now so my fiancé will stop whining at me." I don't miss her. I've grown so much since then, and the person I am now would not even consider socializing with her, even casually. Story 38. He stopped reaching out first, never returned calls, was always busy to meet. The last time we met, he said I was still stuck in the college phase for making a joke we'd laughed at a million times before. Like, holy crap, man, I understand being mature, but if you can't accept people can be both goofy and also handle adult situation, I'll never understand that. There's other things like always going through my chats and photo galleries. Not that bad, though. I've come to accept that, well, we just grew apart. Story 39. He met a guy at university who he thought was cooler, studied the right thing, medicine, had rich parents, etc. It was and has always been about distinguishing himself, operas, theater, the fine arts, golf, tennis, the right kind of people around him. It didn't bother him that we had known each other since we were 4 or 5. The other guy became his best man at his wedding and of course the godfather of one of their children. I felt hurt and still do 30 years later. I have never had another best friend since then. I didn't tell him. It wouldn't change a thing. Story 40. I met my best friend at college. We went off to our separate careers in different states. I came back to the area we're both from where he was working. I thought we'd hang out, but I was the only one who ever suggested it. Skip forward, I live in California and he lives in NYC. I visited him out there on a trip my now wife and I were taking. I know he visits friends and family back here in California, but he's never reached out once. His parents came to the opening of my store. His parents' neighbors did too, but he's never visited me or it. And if you like these stories, because at least one of them got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks we're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.